and warmly welcome to the Finnish Institute in Stockholm, Finland's Institutet, and this digital opening of Ervin Latimer's amazing fashion installation, Possibilities of Potential Selves. My name is Hanna Tapio, and this is my colleague Jaana Wiikman.
And I hope you're doing great back home. We are super excited tonight, and I hope you're going to have a lot of fun tonight also. We're going to meet a lot of people, and we're going to talk to, of course, Ervin Latimer, the Young Designer of the Year in Finland in 2020, I would say. And also with Tuula Teeri, and she's the president of the Swedish Academy of Engineering Sciences, and she's also a board member of the Finnish Institute's board and former president of the Aalto University. And also you're going to meet Martin Bergström, artist and designer.
Yes, and in addition to that, we are also going to take a closer look to this exhibition, Ervin Latimer's fashion installation, that is on display here in our institute in Stockholm, Snickarbacken 4.
But now we'd like to introduce to you Konrad Olsson, and he is the editor-in-chief of Scandinavian Mind and also founder of this magazine. Hi Konrad, welcome to the Finnish Institute.
Thank you so much, it is great being here.
Yeah, great. And we're so happy to have you here tonight. And you are going to lead us through this opening party and do all the interviews.
Yes.
But before we start, I think the audience wants to know, who is Konrad Olsson?
Well, I am a journalist and I run my magazine and platform Scandinavian Mind, covering the intersection of lifestyle industries and tech. And I'm really excited about being here because Finland has a huge place in my heart, and in the platform, even though we call it Scandinavian Mind, we have this sort of very old definition of Scandinavia. We bring in Finland there as well.
Of course.
But I really think there's a strong connection between Finland and Sweden, and we're actually looking at doing some activities in Finland this upcoming year. As it relates to Ervin, he's a creator and an artist and a designer that we've been covering in our platform, so I'm super happy that we'll be able to meet him personally today and interview him, so very excited.
We're so glad that you're here tonight, and Konrad, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we are here with Ervin Latimer. We're sitting in your exhibition here in Stockholm. How do you feel about being here?
I'm so happy to be here, and I'm so excited that we, in the middle of this global situation, that we were able to arrange this safely and smoothly. I'm super, super happy that we were able to do this.
It's so wonderful to come, into this exhibition, sort of immersed by it. You've sort of made this kind of forest in here, basically, with this collection that won you the award, the Finnish Young Designer of the Year last year. Let's just give an introduction to what you have created here. To talk us through this collection and the ideas behind it.
For sure. So the way the Young Designer of the Year competition works is that there's an assignment, and the assignment for this year, or last year, was to design a piece of clothing that has multiple ways to be used. Basically, I approached the concept. I have myself background as a drag artist, so I've always been sort of fascinated how in drag, you use clothing to sort of perform a gender, if you will. And in a fashion context, I just thought that it's interesting to play with this idea and sort of investigate this idea that how could I generate clothing that when you mix and match pieces of them, you generate something new. And through that, you sort of end up making this spectrum where like a piece of clothing sort of transcends from traditional menswear to traditional women's wear. And then depending whatever your personal gender identity is and whatever your personal style is, you can sort of put yourself in that spectrum. So that was the sort of starting point that then evolved into the sort of exhibition that we see here today.
Let's stick on the word identity here. The exhibition is called Possibilities of Potential Selves. And it seems to me like this is a concept you've really been playing with, bending, trying to look at, all different angles. Why has this, aspect of it been so important for you?
Well, I think in all of the creative work that I do, I think a lot of it for me stems from the sort of identity that I have and the sort of marginalized experience in a Nordic or say Finnish society that I have. So as a brown queer person myself, I'm quite used to sort of investigating those sort of marginalized positions in my creative work. So it sort of quite naturally became this thing where like I'm cisgender myself. However, as a designer, I think I have a responsibility to sort of also recognize the fact that there are people with various types of identities that do still wear clothing and do still use clothing to sort of underline their gender identity, or then to sort of not hide it, but to sort of I don't know what the right word is, sort of make it more obscure where maybe isn't so clear, and that's intentional, and everybody has the right to do how they please. So yeah, it was sort of a natural thing for me, very confident in these themes. They feel very home to me, and I think, yes, the collection has a specific point, but I think then at large what you see in this exhibition with the images that we've created, etc., it's sort of about the Nordic fashion identity at large. So even though the collection itself has this gender point of view, in general, everything that you see, hear, read, watch in this exhibition is about sort of making the point that there are various kinds of people that should be in the Nordic fashion image that aren't the norm at the moment, that should be the norm. And that really, I think, is the at least what I hope is the sort of feeling and the sort of core giveaway when you come and visit here.
Well, I think that's what fascinates me, because what you're doing is sort of firmly rooted in the Nordics. It's not like you're trying to do something that's European or French, or you're wanting to sort of expand on the Nordic aesthetics in a way. Am I right here? Are you trying to dig where you are in a way?
I think absolutely, yeah, and I think it's important. Obviously now, luckily there's more opportunities for, say, people of color in fashion, etc. So you see more of these stories told through fashion, and obviously there's great examples from the United States or UK, etc. And I sort of realized that, well, like obviously I don't need to, and I don't want to compete with those people, but there's a pretty sort of big and great story about representation that we need to tell in the Nordics that we haven't told yet. So it really, I guess it stems from necessity, if you know what I mean. Like I just feel like, well, it's not. I think it's also maybe related to the fact that I am half American myself. So I do have that sort of understanding how, say, from the United States, how people look at the Nordics and how it's a very specific image that you have of a Nordic person. It's this, utopia where everything is free and we have great healthcare and education and blah, blah, blah. And what that person looks like, it seems to me, is very specific and very sort of nailed down what it is. And I know from personal experience that there's more to that. So it's sort of a natural thing that I realized that this is what I really want to focus on in my creative work. And that's why I was so happy to come here to the Finnish Institute in Stockholm and really sort of make this connection with Swedish creatives, etc.
So what part of sort of Nordic traditions have you brought into this? Obviously these photographs are in a very sort of mysterious, I suppose, Finnish forest. You can tell more about where they're set, but I'm curious, what elements of sort of the Nordic tradition have you brought into the collection?
Yeah, well, I think like the collection itself, I think. Well, the starting points actually were from like sort of traditional 40s and 50s men's and women's wear, just because during that time clothing was very binary, very clearly menswear and women's wear, and it was sort of very like sort of how would you say, very focused on like what gender represents. Like men wear suits and they're very masculine, and you have strong shoulders, and women wear feminine dresses, etc. So those provided the sort of interesting building blocks. They're not necessarily maybe related to the Nordics, but I think sort of from that starting point, I started to look at that concept sort of from this Nordic framework. But where you really, I think, where you really see the sort of Nordicness is in the sort of image and video that we and the people that I work with created for this exhibition. And yeah, like you said, the images that are taken, these were actually all shot on film by a really great photographer, Hailey Lee. And yes, it's actually a forest that's very close to where I live. I actually go for a run in the forest. It's like the Helsinki Essential Park in Helsinki where this is taken. But it is this sort of mystical, old, pan-Nordic sort of setting that it's set on, except that the people in a fashion context in those images aren't people that you maybe usually wouldn't see.
So let's talk about the casting and how did you find these people who are in this campaign or imagery that's part of this exhibition?
Yeah, I mean these are basically. Well, first of all, I think it's important to say that it wasn't particularly hard to find these people. I think a common thing is to say that for fashion magazines or brands that we're in the Nordics, so we don't have trans models, or we don't have black models, or we don't have plus size, or maybe who have plus size models, blah blah blah. But it's hard to find people who have these sort of intersecting identities, if you may. But it really isn't. The only difference is that maybe they're not like the first ones on the list because of what we're used to sort of seeing in these images. So these are, some of them are friends, some of them are sort of friends of friends, etc. But it was quite easy to find this group, and it's actually, there's 7 models, and altogether it was a group of 13 people that was working on these images. And what's also really important, I think, when we discuss things like representation in fashion and inclusivity, is that yes, the people who you see in front of the lens provide a certain representation, but also the people who are working behind the lens are still providing the same representation. It's not what you see, but it's definitely it has an equal amount of importance to the end result, and to sort of it all affects what you end up seeing in the images.
Let's talk about the sort of collaborative efforts that you sort of use in putting it together an exhibition like this. Obviously, the collection was out last year, and if you follow sort of Nordic fashion, you've seen it before. I've seen it. We've published it in the Scandinavian Mind platform. Yeah. But you also, you've gone other way to create something unique content specific to this location and this exhibition. Talk about that.
Yeah, sure. So I really thought that it's important, because I'm discussing the sort of Nordicness and this Nordic fashion image, I really thought that this is a great opportunity to, form a creative conversation, if you may, with sort of like-minded creative people. And I thought that, well, if it wasn't that difficult for me to find this team, the type of a team that I had in Helsinki, surely it shouldn't be difficult in Stockholm. And well, turns out it wasn't. Stylist Ville Lobos, who is a person who I've worked with in the past, I contacted him and basically sort of asked him to form this team and we didn't think that it was a video. I just reached out to him like, hey, let's do something interesting. This is the sort of setting, this is the collection, it's going to be at the Institute, what could we do? So it was kind of an interesting, I really only provided the setting and sort of saw what we could do, and I'm super happy with the result that we did. And again, it's all of the models in the short video that we have over here, they're street cast, they're all people of color. The entire team, at least most of the team, is LGBTQ or people of color. So yeah, I just thought that
and they're shot in your clothes, in the collection.
Yeah,
so they were allowed to sort of interpret the collection.
Yeah. So I sent the collection here to Stockholm, and they were, I basically let them to interpret the themes. And what was interesting, knowingly, the video, because of the sort of serene, peaceful nature image that we have in the pictures that I took, what Billy and the team wanted to do is a more sort of, so we're sort of repurposing this part of the Nordic image. But another sort of stereotype that you have is that if you think of a, say, young person of color, it's someone in the suburbs or blah blah blah. So they wanted to go into that surrounding and sort of claim that space and claim that look and see what they can do visually in an interesting way with the clothes.
And let's talk about, because you also incorporated, audio, sound, and text in this. So let's mention that as well.
Sure. So a friend of mine, a soundscape designer and DJ, Noakin, he designed the soundscape for the exhibition. It's actually a 30-minute sort of loop that you listen to. And it became, I knew, again, I gave him sort of the specs to see like what can we do, what I really want to make a specific mood. I provided some references, but again, it was sort of up to him to interpret what we can do with this, and it became sort of a crucial part of the feeling, because I really want, when people visit the space, I think the music really helps. It sort of invites you to stay and invites you to really feel the mood that the images and the collection has. And then another person who I've sort of creatively worked with, their name is Nimco Hussein, and they wrote a sort of short essay. Again, I gave the specs and sort of provided them a space to write something related to this. And the short essay that they wrote is sort of an extension of the. I think I would say it's a vocal or a worded out creative extension of the themes that I have in the collection. And then they actually recorded an audio, so they read out the essay themselves, and it's included in the soundscape. So if you spend long enough time in the space, you might hear the essay read out. Right. And it's a very beautiful moment if you happen to be here. And it was done intentionally so that it's not like a loop that you always hear it. It really is intended so that you spend time here, you enjoy. And then at some moment, you will hear the text.
It seems to me that there's a certain amount of openness in terms of how you want your work to be received by the people around you, or the people who take this in. Is that intentional, that you put it out there to see what comes back in a way?
I think with this project, for sure. I think it was quite natural for me. I mean, I would argue that often when you're a marginalized person, in general, you always want to lift like-minded people. So obviously I had these opportunities and, certain budgets at my disposal. So I wanted to make sure that I'm sort of lifting up people like me and pushing them ahead with the opportunities that I have. But I think I really wanted to sort of investigate with this project, if you may, that what happens if because even though I'm, giving out these opportunities to these people, I still have a very precise vision of what's here. But I knew most of the people beforehand, and obviously we fine-tuned everything, but it was.
But I'm thinking, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm thinking also about the collection, because the collection has a certain amount of openness to it.
True, that's very true.
You offer an interpretation to whoever receives it or uses it. So you can use it in many different ways. You can add or subtract or combine in a way that's, I don't know, you're not really the master of your creation in that regard. You leave it up to the user, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think with this collection in particular, there is, for sure, a certain fluidity. But I think it just, again, goes hand in hand with the fact, because a lot of this is about saying that there's more than one type of a person. There's more than one type of an identity that you see in Nordic fashion. So really all of this is an extension of form and do sort of how you feel and how you identify, because there are also intersections within those identities. You might be trans and black, you might be gender non-conforming and disabled, etc. So I really, with this project, I really wanted to offer this sort of space for the user, if you're talking about the clothing, but also space for the other creatives that work with me. But that's a great observation. I should add that to my own own notes.
So Ervin, Finnish Young Designer of the Year 2020. What's in store for the future? What can you tell us about what happens next? Can you reveal anything?
Sure. Well, first of all, this exhibition, depending on the pandemic, will continue moving, hopefully, to other cultural institutes in the Nordics and North Europe. But maybe the biggest thing is that hopefully in a year or so, we could have this discussion, and I've presented my first collection, so I will be starting my own brand this year. And
wonderful.
Working on that full time, starting from the summer.
Well, we're certainly looking forward to that. Thank you so much, Ervin, for speaking to us and sharing your thoughts.
Thank you.
Okay, Ervin, I think this is such a beautiful overview of the collection. Tell me again where this is shot and how this was done.
Yeah, so we're at location at the Central Park in Helsinki. It's actually it's not like long away from anything. I think for like 6 years I was running past this place. It's actually three trees that have like fallen because of wind, and they formed this beautiful wall over there. And it was just, we were super lucky with the weather and everything, shot on film, so it's all no artificial lighting or anything.
And you just told me just before here, it's interesting how, because we're going to see all these mannequin, all these garments and pieces, but you spread them out on these sort of 6 or 7 models, and you didn't have that many pieces. You sort of had to. Yeah,
there's only one of everything, but because everything was designed so that you can take the front, you can have the front part on one model and the back part on another model. But it's still, even though you wouldn't necessarily maybe wear it out like that, I think it still speaks to the, again, like we talked, this sort of fluidity of the collection where you can sort of form and do whatever you want with it and mix and match pieces quite nicely.
Let's take a look then at the garments, because I think this is so.
Sure. So most of the material, like I think, sustainability isn't like a focus in what I do, because I think it should go automatically for any designer, I think, at this point. So, for example, the wool fabric over here is like factory waste fabric from a Finnish company called Tuula Teeri. So it's their leftover basically that I use here to make the suit, and I think this is quite a nice sort of in a miniature way. It sort of shows the idea. So there's this dress that you could tie, there's specific places with the strings that have been planned so that you could.
So that's detachable.
Yeah, it's fully detachable, and you could just attach the front piece, you could just attach the back piece, etc. And there's actually, then when you look at some of the images, you can see that there is like different ways. If you combine it with some of the other outfits, you could basically make it into something completely else. So this sort of very classic masculine white pinstripe suit becomes this traditionally what you would call feminine floral head-to-toe dress outfit.
And the same thing here, because if you look at this from the front, it's like this leather outfit.
Yeah,
but this has a flip side to it as well.
For sure, and again, like playing with the same idea, what you would traditionally call very masculine, like this sort of biker outfit, head-to-toe leather. But then on the other side, and this is actually all also recycled leather, so all of the leather is from second-hand leather jackets, etc. that I got. And it's again bonded to the same floral pattern, so if you flip it inside out, you get this head-to-toe floral look. And again, you could just remove the collar, you could just remove the sleeves, etc. You could just combine the trousers with another trouser, etc. And everything is planned so that there's like the placements of the strings match.
Do you enjoy the construction part of it?
I do, actually. Weirdly, I don't. Not everybody cares for it, but for me, maybe it's because I've been working in the industry, so then you really understand that there's specific ways to create a product, and I think often we think that when you're a student, you don't really need to worry about that stuff, and that's fine. But I think I've reached the point where I'm very sort of curious how to actually make. I think, even though this is conceptual, it's all clothing that you could actually wear, and it would work, work in real life.
Should we take a look at? I think what's interesting here is also that the text.
So these are, I have quotes from the essay that was written for the audio that is played in the exhibition. It's not playing now, so that we can hear each other. But yeah, there were three quotes that are sort of spread around, and I think they all, I wouldn't even start explaining what they mean. I think they just speak to the mood and the sort of theme of the collection, and it's just worded out to help the sort of who's visiting here to sort of get into the idea and the themes of the collection. But I think especially if you spend time here long enough and then you hear the text out, I think it's a nice moment if you happen to sort of hear what's said in the text.
I think it's interesting how you kind of work with layering in your designs, and even in constructing this exhibition, there's kind of different layers of content and expressions that is sort of placed above each other.
No, it's very true, and I think in general the exhibition is planned so that you don't just enter from one point and then stare at one direction. It really invites you to sort of walk around. I think no matter which direction you look at, there's always something interesting and, like you said, something layered to look at. So it's not, we actually I spent quite a lot of time like planning the space here and how to really make sure that it's not just that you come in the middle, have a look and go away, but you go through, even though it's not the most biggest space, but you really end up spending time here and listening, watching, seeing, enjoying.
Let's have a look at this dress over here.
For sure. And again, the same thing over here, like, yes, it could just traditionally be worn as a dress, but actually the placements of the strings match with some of the other outfits, so it could be tied together with the suit or with some of the other outfits that I have in the collection. And yeah, like it's interesting because I wanted all of the mannequins to have high heel boots just to mix things up, and I think it gives an interesting silhouette. So, but because of that, you need to use female mannequins. But what I think is important to understand that they just happen to be what we call female mannequins. So it really isn't. Even though it's a female mannequin, it's not intended that it's just a woman that would wear the dress. So it really, as you can see in the pictures, my idea is that it's also, yes, you can reflect your gender with the clothing, but you can also reflect your style. So I think a guy could wear this easily.
I think what's interesting and sort of hard to define you in a way is because I think most designers, you can sort of tell if they're leaning towards sort of traditional menswear or traditional women's wear. You have sort of mixed it up and made a point out of it. Would you admit to be leaning one way or the other in terms of your your craft and inspiration?
No, it's a really interesting question. I've worked, actually, when I was working in the industry, I was working in a women's wear team in Italy and then as a design manager for both men's and women's in Copenhagen. But for my personal work, I would call myself a menswear designer, or at least a designer that creates clothing for the male performance. That's how I would say it, and I think that's also going forward with my own brand. That's what it's going to be about. It will be technically menswear, but it really doesn't matter who wears the clothing. It's just for whoever wants to project maleness and masculinity. But again, my version of masculinity has dresses and skirts, etc. So it's not really limited to that sort of traditional.
Oh, fascinating. I think we've seen several menswear brands that gain a large sort of female audience as well. So interesting to see. I think lastly, in this sort of walk around, let's take a look here, and we're going to see this video in its whole after this. But this is also sort of the local contribution to this exhibition. The Swedish team that did this video. So when you saw this result, what did you think? What did you expect?
I saw some sneak peek when they were making it, but I was actually even more pleasantly surprised that it was something completely different. It wasn't even trying to sort of match. We knew that it's going to be a contrast to what I have over here, but it was even stronger of a contrast that I sort of could have hoped for, because the mood really intentionally is different, and it really is sort of, it has a very strong visual language on its own. The team, Erik, Pousette, who shot this, they did an excellent job of sort of creating their very own sort of aesthetic. However, yes, with the visual cues of having my clothing, but it's still, even though the mood is a tad different, it still works perfectly with what's here, and it makes sense with the idea of this possibilities of selves that you have. And we're sort of rebranding the Nordic fashion image, but we're also saying that, okay, you think that brown people are like young kids in the suburbs, fine, we'll make a fashion film over there and sort of take that image and do something visually interesting with that. And really, I'm so happy with that result that they did.
Wonderful. Ervin, thanks again for letting us inside your thoughts.
Yes.
And congratulations to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, so now we are here with Tuula Teeri. You are the president of the Royal Swedish Academy of Engineering Sciences, and you were also the first president of the Aalto University. Welcome.
Thank you.
So I want to get right into it and talk about the extraordinary ability that Aalto University has had in creating these enormous fashion talents. You have exported fashion talents out of Helsinki at a rate that is staggering from a Nordic perspective, and it kind of pains my Swedish heart to say it, but I think this has been very interesting, especially since Finland doesn't really have a tradition of a lot of fashion brands in the way that your Nordic neighbors has. What do you think has been the reasons behind this evolution? Why are you able to produce these many fashion talents out of Helsinki?
That's a good question, and I actually have, in my position when I was still president of Aalto University, I have had many discussions with the School of Arts and Design about this story that I think you can call it a success story without any reservation. And there are a few things that I think that have contributed to this success in the education. I mean, maybe the first thing is that something that Helena Hyvönen, who was the dean of the School of Art and Design at the time when I was rector, she was saying that one of the strengths in the design, fashion design in Aalto University was that we make our own materials. I think we can see it already today in this exhibition that we are sitting in, and the fact that there has been the tradition of the Finnish textile industry as a ground for this fashion design, which is now implemented. And that means that there has been both the talent, the understanding of how you prepare, how you make and manufacture textiles, but also the infrastructure to be able to do so. So you're not actually, the students in Aalto, they're not relying on ready-made fabrics from somebody else, but they can actually also use the fabric design as part of their fashion design. So I think that's one of those areas which I believe that has been quite important.
Right. So do you think there is a connection between the fact that there isn't so much opportunity to work within Finland, that the students have actually, aimed for an international career? Has that been a factor, do you think, in the teachings?
Well, I'm not sure that the fact that there are not opportunities in Finland. I mean, there are many of the students from Aalto University who have started their own fashion businesses, which I think is really delightful. And there is, of course, Marimekko, and there are a few other design houses in Finland. So it's maybe not the lack of jobs in Finland, but I think it's rather the strategy among the teachers at that department that they want to make the fashion designers that come out of the school fearless, so that they are exposed to all these international competitions, which then when they actually go up in the ranks in these design fashion competitions abroad, it gives them the kind of self-confidence that, okay, I can manage with my skills anywhere in the world. And that is, of course, very good also for the Finnish fashion design, because some of these people, they might go and work somewhere abroad in Paris or London or New York for a while, and then they might come back, as we have seen, for instance, to Marimekko or another one of those enterprises that we have in the fashion area in Finland.
Mm. So, sticking on this subject a little bit, and I'm curious about the connection between the sort of education, the bringing about of the students and the opportunities within Finland. Was there a lot of dialogue under your management between the industry and the school in terms of how to offer opportunities for the students?
When you talk with the teachers in the school and in the department, you get a very, very strong feeling that they are educating the people or the students to get jobs. And this is not always the case in all art schools, that, sometimes you feel like the kind of freedom of the art or something like that is more important than, then you will somehow manage your professional life. But I think there's been a very strong focus on job creation and job skills for the students. And for instance, Pirjo Hirvonen, who's been the professor actually almost all the time that I was there as a president, she has an industrial background. And so it's not only that, they are boosting the creativity, they are helping with the materials design, they are giving the tools for the students to manage, but they are also very strategically working to give them an understanding of what the business is about. And I think that this attitude has been strengthened now that Aalto University actually combined both technology and business into this artistic, more sort of artistic-based fashion design. So there are, for instance, courses for fashion merchandising these days, which didn't exist before Aalto University. So it's the art-based creativity, it's the materials design and the technology, together with a sense of business development and what these kind of jobs actually mean for the student when they enter the working life. So I think these are the strong elements of this education.
That's very interesting. Let's stick on that for a moment. I think that this sort of interaction between technology and fashion, or perhaps like creative expressions, is really important right now, and where we are in the world right now. And I'm curious where you see the role of the sort of fashion and design driven part of the education system. How should they adapt to new technologies? How should they look forward in terms of how these industries will, I would say, inevitably change?
Well, my own favorite subject is sustainable development. I've been working in my own research career with the bio-based materials and circular economy and bioprocesses and things like that. I think that is one element, that there is a very strong commitment to sustainable development at Aalto University. There's a very strong base in wood-based materials, and these kind of technologies that create materials which don't anymore pollute in the way, also processes that don't pollute. I mean, the textile industry doesn't really have a glorious past, in being an environmentally friendly industry, and it needs to get there. And that means that, they have to be recyclable, they have to be benign processes, but they still have to have a very high performance. And so I think that this idea for the founders of Aalto University to put together art, design, business and technology, it really was timely, and I think that time will show that there will be followers in this strategy. And I'm thinking about, for instance, some of these materials that are now winning prizes and inspiring the students. Now they are bio-based material, like we call iron cell, and then the students were able to make a dress for the wife of the President of Finland, with this new material to really show. I think that's maybe something that you can also say that it's thanks to the fashion marketing, who could be a better role model for modeling these new kind of costumes, which are made of these sustainable materials. And she really wanted that dress, because of the sustainability aspect. So creativity, business sense, material design, marketing, these. When you put all these things together, Finland has a future in fashion design.
Wonderful. I enjoy that. We're right now here in Stockholm at the Institute in this wonderful exhibition. You have also moved on, so you're professionally living here and working here in Stockholm right now. Mm-hmm. Where do you see the opportunities for a deepened collaboration between Finland and Sweden in this area?
It's one of my it's a question which is very close to my heart, because all my life I have been working in between the two countries, Finland, Sweden, that's the story of my life, and I think that if you look at our history and if you look at our opportunities, our technology development, we are very, very like. There is so many connection points, so I think this is something that we could make much better use of by really working together with at least in the kind of art and sort of the beginning of the industries. I mean, it's clear that once you have the industries and they happen to be in one or the other country, then there will be competition or rivalry or whatever you like to call it. But in the basic development, I think that we understand each other. We have the same strengths. You know, we have forest-based materials, we have the digital technologies, we have many of these things together. Sweden is maybe a little bit better with marketing, and Finland might be a little bit more original, you know, with the designs, you know. But we could do much more together. The Nordic region, Nordic brands.
So let's. I'm not sure about the originality there. We can debate that
argue
perhaps.
about that.
But let's talk about what we can learn from each other. I think
Yeah.
that's important. Let's go deep on that. Some would say that Finns maybe are a little bit more bold when it comes to particularly fashion. I think this exhibition perhaps indicates that. But let's start with what can Swedes learn from Finns?
Well, we were actually, when we came to this, when I've thought about this, I mean, Minna Parikka came to my mind, you know, and she has been a shoe designer that has had kind of shoes with ears of a rabbit and things like that. And I haven't seen that kind of craziness in the Swedish design. The Swedish design is elegant and so on, but I think that there is some inherent craziness in the Finnish design, you know, which means that you're bold in a way that, you know, it addresses certain groups of people, users, young people, you know, some little bit more radical part of the young generation to test fashion. But of course, you know, there are exceptions on both sides. We also have very elegant designers in Finland, and has crazy designers, if you like.
Right.
So it's not black and white, of course.
Exactly. Maybe there's a history of mystique in Finland that we can tap into as well.
That's right.
Yeah, I feel I can talk about this forever. This is so fascinating, but we're running out of time. You've been looking at Ervin's exhibition now, just prior to this interview. Are there any thoughts, anything that comes to mind when you see this? What do you think about it?
Yeah, I like very much this idea that, you know, you deviate from this kind of form that, okay, you're a middle-aged woman and you can't wear these kind of things, you know. I can see that I probably could wear some of these things, you know, or that it's not designed for a certain type of a person, but it's a beautiful dress or a beautiful coat, you know, which many people could think of wearing. And that's part of, for me, also the circular economy, you know. You can, you know, I can borrow my son can borrow my dress if he wants. So, and I'm really intrigued by the beauty of these materials. Like I said, I think that's the material design and the material manufacturing is part of the strength of the Aalto University design. And I think I can see it. You know, there's a kind of an interplay with the black leather and then flowers on the other side, and that's part of the boldness for me, and it's also part of the skill in materials design.
Tuula Teeri, thank you so much for speaking to us today.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Okay, we are here with Martin Bergström, designer. Martin, thank you so much for being with us. I wanted to talk to you about the Finnish fashion and design scene and your take on that. So what's your spontaneous reaction when I say the Finnish design scene?
I think the design scene in Finland or Helsinki is what I find a little bit more wild, maybe compared to other places and compared to maybe Sweden or something. So I would say that there is a wilderness going on that I find very interesting. So I would say that, and of course, it's a lot of different things going on at the same time, and of course, and also that from the start, when I'm in Helsinki and Finland was very inspired by architecture and other types of design, and then of course that sort of linked into the fashion. So I think it's
right. I think wild is an interesting word here. Are there any similarities do you see in the Nordic scene, where if Finland, remarks itself by being more wild? What are the similarities?
I mean, I think, for example, like there is this, of course, we are, I mean, located very in the north. So, I mean, we have always been sort of looking out from where we are. And like, I think that's also something that, I mean, of course, for Finland, I mean, has been like looking out from to the east, and we have had the Russian influences and everything. And I think that's, of course, a difference from maybe Sweden or other countries, but I think there are, of course, a lot of similarities, and I mean, we have this minimalistic touch that's been around for a very, very long time, but on the other hand, there's always been this kind of very, what I was really say wild and a little bit, not crazy, but a little bit more, there's a little bit this weird things going on that I really enjoy in Finland. So yeah.
Wonderful. Martin, you're a designer and creator based in Stockholm, Sweden, but you have a special relationship with Finland. So can you talk about your relationship with Finland?
I mean, I've been living I live also in Helsinki, and I've been living there for 12 years now. So, I mean, of course, I know a lot of and I'm going back and forth normally when it's not this weird situation. But, I mean, I love Finland. And, of course, and I had this, I mean, my grandmother was Finnish. But I thought that she was, all Finnish people were so weird because she was kind of special. But nowadays, when I look back, she was so like, fashion forward and with everything. I mean, she was eating like this raw food. She was eating like all this, what to say? I mean, algae and all these weird things. And she dressed like, in this amazing weird way. But when you were 7, I thought it was kind of weird. But now I really, when I look back, I mean, I think that of course that's so fantastic what she did. So yeah.
But do you feel like Finland has influenced you as a designer? Is that part of who you are as a creator?
A lot. I think Finland, I mean, especially like, I mean, when I came to Finland 12 years ago, I mean, I had this a little bit, I didn't know really what to expect. And then it was like open arms. And I mean, this amazing place that I didn't know really existed, like 40 miles from Stockholm. So, I mean, for me, I mean, it's been, I mean, a lot, I mean, in my work, in my profession, and I mean, whatever I do, I mean, Finland is always a part of my heart. So it's really, I love it. So for me, it's been very important.
How do you see the collaboration between Finland and Sweden? How do you look upon it right now, and how could it be improved?
I mean, I think it's getting better. I think that we need to do more collaborations, I mean, everywhere, I mean, in every field. And I think that, I mean, there is no bridge between, I mean, Stockholm and Helsinki, but I mean, it's really, we need that sort of mental bridge more because it's very close. I mean, we are living so, I mean, close to each other. And I mean, I think we need to do much more collaborations, and I mean in all fields, because I think we both have a lot to learn from each other, that we could sort of really do amazing things. So I think that of course it's getting better and it's getting more, and also like, for example, now with all these designers that are coming from Finland, I think that's something that could be really we can.
So you in your work, you're also a lecturer. You work with Beckmans here in Stockholm. Is there collaboration with Finland or influences that you bring out in your work as a teacher?
Of course, I mean it's and that's something we are working on at the moment. I mean, we're trying to do this collaboration with Aalto, for example, and that's something we are really sort of working on at the moment. And that could be really something that I think for all the students of place, it could be something that's very, could lead to very amazing things. So definitely that's something that we are working on at the moment.
So we are here to introduce and I guess celebrate Ervin Latimer's exhibition here in Stockholm. You've seen his work, you've seen what he's done. What are your impressions? What do you take away from it?
I mean, I think it's amazing and really, I mean, something that I think is very important in all these fields, and I'm really happy. I'm very happy that it's shown now in Stockholm, so more people can see his work. And of course, that's another, I mean, amazing designer from Helsinki and Finland. So I mean, I can't be more happy that we see more Finnish design in Stockholm. That's I'm very happy about that.
Martin Bergström, thank you so much for all your hard work and thanks for speaking to us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope that you enjoyed this digital opening and Ervin Latimer's installation. And remember that the gallery is open for public during the Stockholm Design Week this week from Wednesday to Friday from 11 to 5 o'clock and on Saturday from 11 to 3 o'clock. And after this week we are also open for the public on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 3 to 5. And also by appointment. And there are also going to be some Saturdays that we are open.
But please check out our website to be sure that we actually are open, finlandsinstitutet.se, or our Instagram, Finlandsinstitutets gallery. And now, Hanna,
We say thank you for the evening and bye bye.
bye bye!